Thank you, Chair. So the revenue budget is very much all about setting our ongoing budgets every year for what we do every year. The capital strategy programme is in some ways a more interesting one. This is where you get to invest in our communities, in our facilities, and very much I think the key document I'd point to is Appendix B on page 57, which gives you a full breakdown of the proposed capital schemes over the next few years. Probably worth pointing out again, going back to LGR, this takes it up to 2030-31. The idea being that actually we need to make sure we plan for all our development needs for the residents over the future years, which is why you'll see things like bins need to be bought for the next few years, refuse vehicles need to be replaced, and actually by doing this you can make sure you've got a sustainable financial programme over the medium term. Um, this year there have been some additions to the capital programme. I think that have been detailed in the covering report. I don't propose to go in each one in detail, but I'm sure members will have questions on them. And it's probably just worth pointing out the overall scale of the capital programme. 26-27 is £22 million worth of capital programme. 27-28 nearly 12 million, and then it sort of does tail off slightly, but that's very much always been the council's ambition to invest in some key projects in the early years of this administration. It's worth pointing out also that this table shows how this capital programme will be financed. A significant portion from capital grants, no intended borrowing until 29-30, and then using our earmarked reserves, which has always been the follow on from the current programme for investing in our communities.
Can I ask you to maybe give us a quick sort of minute on the thinking behind 3.2, like how the percentage breakdown? Is that, would you mind doing that?
Okay. I think it's very difficult to say actually we need to spend 20% of our budgets on this in this year and that year. So in some ways that's just a representation of where the money is being invested, but very much trying to make sure that actually where it's appropriate it is spent on all the objectives. It's not just focused on one objective.
Okay, that's really helpful. So Rodney, you happy to go to comments and questions now? Yeah, okay. Anything from the committee on the capital programme? Brendan, Councillor Bernard, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at page 58, I just wanted an explanation on two things. One is the Horizon Centre maintenance doubles next year and then trebles and carries on to almost reaches 200,000 a year. I thought we were supposed to be saving money on this move to here. The other thing is device replacement programme is the same every year, and yet we're not planning to increase population or the employment by those amounts. I mean, why should, once we've got computers and all the rest of it in place, you're not going to be replacing them every year. It's just, yeah.
I reckon that'll be around fixed cost of depreciation assets, but both questions, Rodney, if you don't mind, the maintenance increase as well.
Let's start with the second one, that's probably the easier one. So for members, we have a replacement programme every 5 years, or every 4 years after each elections, but for officers, we have a 4-year replacement cycle that's staggered. So a quarter of the laptops will be replaced this year, a quarter next year, a quarter the following year. So that's why you've got the same amount each year. We're not going for a big bang, everyone gets a new laptop this year and then we don't do anything for 4 years. We do that for our big server replacements. There is a 5-year investment programme for that, but the individual peripheral ones, like laptops, as I say, it's a replacement programme every year. With regard to the Horizon Centre works, this isn't a figure in the air that just goes of, well, actually, what number we need to do. It is based on a planned maintenance programme, so it depends what's coming up for renewal in that year. All buildings need things like decoration of the facilities, or I think the big one in 29-30 is potential refurbishment of the toilet areas, and therefore that's why that's higher in that year, and not lower. So it just depends exactly what's going to be needed in future years. But just because it's in the programme, if it doesn't need doing, it will move back, and that's reviewed every year. But there is a full maintenance programme for this building. And indeed, if they were cost savings, we are now only maintaining one building. Previously, the two councils, we had two office buildings to maintain. So actually, if we had to replace elements of the roof, we would have to replace two roofs. Now we only have to replace one roof. I don't know if Debbie wants to come in.
Okay, can I just bring Daniel in if you don't mind, and then we'll bring yourself and then go back to Brendan. Thank you.
I think there's a chance that Debbie was about to make the same point I am, which is obviously these also have to be seen in the context of invest to save, in that we do also generate a commercial return from this building. I'm sure over recent months, councillors here will have seen the works going on to prepare upstairs for commercial tenants, and they would have seen the new vet sign going on outside for the annex as well. So there is income associated with this at the same time.
Okay, please do. Thank you.
What I would always say is these figures were always in the original business case. Members, if they can cast their mind back, way back, and when it came in, we had the cost of maintaining what would have been South Norfolk House, which were going to be quite extraordinary over the next 25 years. And then we also had surveys done, both mechanical engineering and building surveys. These figures come from those surveys, so they were always already planned in. We are starting now to do condition surveys anyway, to see if there's anything else, and obviously surveys move on in the 3 years we've already been here. But you know, the costs, for instance, as Rodney mentioned about refurbishing the toilets, they were always in the original business case as part of that move here. But absolutely, we take a decision on whether that work needs to be done as we get nearer the time, but these were what were planned in.
Okay, good question, good answers. I'll keep it with Councillor Bernard if that's okay. Yeah, you happy with that? Councillor Cross.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask about car park improvements, which is 35,000 a year. Is that does that money come from the car parking charges, or is this a separate capital investment that we put in above and beyond what we get from charging people to park in our car parks?
Yes, it's effectively the sinking fund for car park maintenance and replacement, and the intent is that the car park should broadly be cost neutral. I don't believe that's always been a 100% accurate conversion, but that's been the intent behind the parking fee should equate to the cost of the sinking fund.
Thank you. You okay with that, Catherine? Okay. Any other comments or questions from the committee? Please do, Terry.
I think it would be helpful just to have a little bit of a narrative around a couple of the big ticket item, which is the investment in community open spaces, just so that committee members are aware of that at 2.25 million. And also the community facilities grant a little lower on page 57, which is 500,000. Just the thinking behind that, I think that falls into the area that the leader was talking about earlier, which was investing in South Norfolk. While we can invest in South Norfolk, but I think it would be useful to have some narrative around that.
Okay, who wants to take that? Thank you.
I'll take it. So it'd probably be helpful if I go back a couple of steps here, just to the original source of this money. You'll be aware that in our prior capital programmes, we had put aside significant money for works associated with building a new depot in South Norfolk. For a variety of reasons, that proved to be an unoptimal solution at the moment, in part due to a growing cost base, in part due to the fact that LGR is almost certain to change optimal route patterns and will almost certainly free up land owned by other councils that may create a better solution than we ourselves would create at the second. So we took the decision to reduce that capital allocation and upgrade that site and free up the remainder of that budget for direct investment in South Norfolk. The idea being the money will be allocated in such a way as it can be easily delivered and make an immediate impact for residents. The largest parts of that, as Councillor Laidlaw has just identified, is the investment in Ketts Park, which is quite a significant upgrade for that site. Does generate a return as well for the council, so increases the overall sustainability of our leisure offering into the future. The community places. Yes, you'll forgive me. I need to actually come up with a proper name for this fund because I have in my head it's the places fund, and it's not a very good name. Effectively, it's a pot of money, and my intent with it is that it will be distributed around a number of settlements, principally those settlements that have seen some significant degrees of growth over recent years. At the moment, my intent is that there will be around 500,000 in there for a green space project in Poor England. There will be a sum of money in the order of 300 to 500,000 for projects associated with the Pies Mill area in Loddon. There will be money in there for the Cringleford Country Park scheme in Cringleford, not surprisingly. An area in the realm of £500,000 for Cossey, and with the remainder potentially looking at other market towns as projects come forward. The community facilities grant I alluded to earlier as, if you like, the companion piece to the CAF fund. I think we've had some historic issues with the CAF fund where it has effectively been used for the maintenance of existing assets rather than the creation of new ones. What we've done is create this to have a dedicated fund for that, at the same time tighten up the rules on CAF to make sure that it's delivering new things, and those new things have a replacement plan as part of them, and also to make sure there is a pot of money that can be spread around those smaller settlements that aren't either benefiting from the significant investments into our major urban areas or into those smaller market towns.
Good full answer, thank you. Terry, do you want to come back on that?
I'm happy. I just thought it would be useful for the committee to understand the thinking behind that.
I think it's really good. Councillor Overton.
Just to get an understanding of Ketts Park, what is the ownership of Ketts Park in relationship to Wymondham Town Council and South Norfolk Council? Who owns what?
Okay, do you want to take that again, Daniel? Thank you.
I wasn't going to take it because I was going to say there is an informal briefing available on Tuesday on the Ketts Park project specifically, where any member can go and get far more information than I would be able to provide, I think.
Okay, is there anything we can pass on at this stage to John's question, in terms of John's question?
Richard?
Well, I mean, effectively it's owned by Wymondham Town Council, leased to us.
Do you want to come back there, John?
In its present state, because it has I suppose it's a community centre, and it has several football pitches, and it has a 3G pitch. I was just wondering, as we look right now, who's responsible for what, and who gets the income from what?
Do you want to, yeah, please do, yeah.
We are responsible and we get the income.
Okay, we're still with you, John.
From everything. So how do Wymondham Town Council benefit from, I mean, I suppose their income comes from their community centre.
Well, I think probably the easiest thing to say is that is over on a leased basis to us over a fixed period of time. And so the income that is generated for Wymondham Town Council comes from that lease.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions from the committee? No, okay, well, let's go wider. We'll bring it back again. Jim, do you want to come in there?
First question was just a point of clarification from Councillor Elmer, please. When he talked about the investment in open spaces, he referred to Pies Mill, but there is a separate line for that in the capital plan.
Thank you. Is that okay, Councillor Elmer? Thank you.
Yes, the council is correct. It was originally part of the same fund, and it got separated out earlier on in the process. My apologies, that's a recollection issue from different versions of the document on my part.
Okay, don't challenge it because it's in my ward as well. Right, thank you.
And this is a question, not a challenge, Chair. But perhaps that funding for Pies Mill can be explained in a bit more detail in relation to what it's intended to provide, what the extent of our responsibilities are, etc.
Yeah, we've just got to be careful here. I think a general heads up on that, if that's possible. Thank you.
So Pies Mill itself, there are a number of moorings there that are, I would say, important to the local tourism trade in Loddon, that need repairing, full stop, as part of an economic growth imperative. There is also a wider question of green space and connectivity into the town that will be able to be addressed depending on what the overall cost balance ends up being between repairs to the moorings themselves and what's left after that.
Yeah, I've been down to the site. I mustn't put my Loddon hat on, but I've been to the site and I echo that. I don't want to go too deeply into one line, but a quick comeback on that, Jim, if you want to.
Just who actually owns the moorings and the land?
Okay, let's make this a final comment on this.
I'm going to have to come back to you on that because there's a relationship with the Rules Authority, but I can't tell you exactly.
Okay, Jim, any further comments or questions on the report?
Just one very detailed one. There's a line towards the top of Appendix B for disabled facilities grant. I was surprised to find that there's a bit of a backlog on disabled facilities. My question is, how do we estimate demand, and is the income, is the grant itself variable according to demand?
Okay, that's a good one. Rodney, do you want to comment on that?
So the funding comes from the Better Care Fund, and that amount is announced by government of how much we get. And that there's a fixed amount for the year. We can't influence that. There has just been an announcement, got a bit more money in 25, 26. And I think I might challenge you on saying there's a backlog. There is probably some more applications than ideal, but actually I think we're in a good position for getting through our disabled facility grants, and there is a good turnaround, but I'm sure there's always more we could do.
Okay, Jim, do you want to come back on that?
So if you like, profit or loss on disabled, it's a statutory entitlement, and that's a question, and B, any sort of profit or loss on the £1 million is back to the council.
Yeah, that's clear, thank you.
Yes, I think.
Okay, right, anything finally from the committee? Yeah, please do, Brendan.
Thank you, Chair. One aspect that I have experience on is this 100,000 to street cleaners of the parish. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, in the sense of you can buy 3 machines probably for 100,000, and where would they go? The alternative, which we do in Ditchingham, is that we actually pay for a litter picker out by the parish council, but it would be, but it's restricted in 2 hours a week, and it would help the parish and help the other parishes which I represent, who all have problems of litter, and I wondered whether that 100,000 could be actually split up among the parishes as a fund for paying for litter pickers, rather than 4 machines going to big towns, or rather than spread over the whole of the district. Thank you.
Okay, it's probably a political one, that I think, isn't it? Good question though. Thanks, Daniel. Is that okay, Rodney? Comment if you want to.
I think it probably is I think it's actually a technical question, because I've raised this well. I agree with the sentiment. I would love to get more street cleaners out into parishes, but I think there's an issue there between the capital and the revenue issue. So the purpose of this scheme is effectively to help front fund the capital cost of those areas that can commit to operating and making use of them. Were we to convert that to a revenue cost. Ultimately, yes, it will fund some street cleaning for a little while, but then the money will disappear, and it won't have a long-lasting impact in the same way that paying for equipment with a commitment to use would have.
That's a good response. Do you want to come back on that, Brendan?
I mean, there's an aspect of, more responsibility and onward cost for the parishes, which actually receive a street cleaner of sorts. And I still feel that litter picking is more applicable to everyone, rather than the towns. Certainly, the aspect of a lot is done in parishes already on a voluntary basis, but as everyone knows, it's a bit difficult to find committed volunteers over a period of time, and I think a lot of parishes could do well by having paid litter pickers.
Okay. Yeah, no, we're noting the sentiments on this. Richard wants to come in there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think it's just, certainly I agree entirely with that sentiment, representing a rural ward myself, but I think it's important to understand that, well, two things really. Firstly, that we've got an incredibly good track record with litter picking around, the voluntary schemes that you're talking about. But secondly, that this initiative, which has been trialled in DIS or has been looked at in more detail in some of the larger market towns, is certainly by no means exclusively intended to be for those towns. Where there is capacity to operate, even with smaller parishes, then the opportunity to do that will certainly be considered in the process when it's written up.
Okay. Are you happy with that? It's not like that. Any further final comments or questions from anyone on the committee? No, are we okay? Happy with the recommendations such as they are? Yep. We can nod them through, can't we? Yep. Okay. Right. Let's go straight on, if you don't mind. So remain in the hot seat for the Treasury Management Strategy Statement. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chair. This is often seen as the least interesting of the three budget documents, but actually it is really important, as we do have £50 million worth of investments and say £24.5 million worth of borrowings. So this document very much sets the parameters around who we can lend with, how long for, who we can borrow with, how long for, etc. So actually it is really the framework that guides your officers like myself on where we place the residents' money and how we deal with it. So this document doesn't change significantly from year to year, because we have got a fairly standard policy where actually we only invest our money with large banks which got high credit ratings, very much to protect the security of that investment. As you might get a higher return if you put in a lower rated institution, but you're then at higher risk for actually not getting your capital back, and protection of the capital is seen as the key priority. We have made a few minor changes this year to these documents, and they're set out in paragraph 3.2 on page 61. And very much there's a technical one there about the way we have to report some of the indicators now has to be amended for what they're called right of use assets, which were previously known as operating leases. So whereas we might have rented a vehicle on a finance lease for 3 years, it was dealt with through the revenue budget, that's now counted as a right of use asset and is counted slightly differently. So actually there's some technical changes relating to that. We've also actually removed the ability to invest in long-term gilt-edged securities, bonds or property funds. Very much this is in the light of LGR. It probably would not be appropriate at this stage to tie investments up for the long term, because actually we need to make sure there's sufficient flexibility for whatever comes. It's not something we had done previously, and actually it's probably not something we would be looking to do, but this just tightens it up to mean that actually we wouldn't be doing it, and this is making a clear statement we're not doing it. We've increased the capital loan limit from 30 to 35 million to reflect the new Big Sky lending arrangement, and we've updated all the indicators to reflect our current or spending plans as per the capital strategy. And indeed, we've reduced the ability to make longer term investments there isn't much of a market at the moment for actually investing money for 2-3 years to banks. But actually, we've said even if we could, we wouldn't do that again for the same reason for LGR. But obviously, happy to take any questions on the paper.
Yeah. Questions or comments? Councillor Burnley.
Thank you. It's just a practical point. You said that a number of these they've been updated or changed, and I wondered whether in future you could actually highlight those for so that we can actually see what has changed.
They are listed, I think, aren't they?
Yes, we did list them, but we did try, for instance, on page 77, we're showing that actually that guilty security line has been struck out on there. So we might not have done every single change, but we have tried to highlight the main ones in the document.
You happy with that, sir? Okay. Any other comments or questions from the committee? Okay, let's go wide and then we'll come back round. Councillor Webber, have you got anything to add on this one? Please do.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Does someone want to pick that up?
It's a security.
You know,
it's a security. No.
Do you want to come back on that, Jim?
I'd be interested in fuller explanation, given that we rely significantly on the rating agencies to determine where to invest, and which way do we think the rating agency's methodology is inappropriate or inadequate for Hong Kong.
Thank you.
Let's defer to Rodney now.
Can we take that off and come back with a written response sort of thing? It was a decision taken a couple of years ago to remove them sort of thing.
Are you happy with that, Jim? Yeah, I think it's a fair point. Councillor Elliott, please do.
Sorry, I don't want to prolong it, and I think Rodney's going to give a written answer, but I think the decision to remove it was not a political decision as such. I think it came from advice from our investment advisors.
Okay, but I think a fuller response would be helpful, actually, yeah. Jim, you got any other comments or questions?
Sorry, no.
It's a special day.
Oh, go on.
No, I do appreciate your contribution to this committee. Right, back to the members for a final sweep. Are you all happy with that? Okay, quick show of hands or nod through the recommendations. We're all good? Okay. Finally, work programme. Everyone happy with that? Yep, we're all good. Right, I'll just thank you profusely, Rodney, for today. You've been there quite a while and really appreciate your frankness and openness and clarity. And thanks to everyone for the questions and challenge as well. So we'll bring it to a close. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.